Okay, nobody swear. Cool. Welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday. Hi, Kel.
Hiya. Hello.
I didn't know you were blind.
I am. Oh,
Brilliant. No, Mike.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if I got my thing off. Yeah, no, I am quite blind, and that's why I'm wearing these. I haven't got my lenses in.
I wear contact lenses.
I normally always do, but today I've been feeling really sick, so I just let everything go. Put my glasses on.
Go on. Well, tonight we haven't really got you put a topic out.
Yeah, I read it to you earlier.
Tell me what it was.
I can't remember.
Remind me. Right, so I'm just going to mute everybody. Where are we at? How do I mute everybody? Look.
Participants.
There we go. Mark can't keep his mouth shut. Can't be trusted, can't the lad? Say what I like, no, he can't speak. Yeah, so tonight's topic is the simplicity of mind, I think we called it. And it was funny, I was speaking to a friend earlier on today. I'm not normally into phones and apps, but last night we had an appy game of Scrabble. Has anybody seen it? Words with Friends. I was playing with a genius. I got 60 pointer. For a word I don't actually think exists. Attender. I think it's actually attendee, but never mind. I got 60 points for it. Excuse me. But he asked me. No, speaking to him, he asked me, what's the most important thing you've ever learned? I remember it actually being a really easy question. I remember said, it's the most important thing I've ever learned, or the most interesting thing I've ever learned, is starting to learn about the nature of mind. And he just nodded and he was like, yeah, I get that. He's a very intelligent lad. Seriously academic and intelligent, but at the same time, he has a deep respect for the spiritual, which I think is a really beautiful mix. I don't think I'm very academic, or like, I can bumble my way through things, but I wouldn't say I'm academic. But what I love about the nature of mind, it's a really kind of neutralizing. It's a really kind of neutralizing conversation. It's a conversation without hierarchy. It's a conversation without class. It's a conversation without gender. It's a conversation without race, and it's a conversation without religion. It's a conversation without age. There's not many things in this world that are in our lives that are that neutral and yet so powerful. So yeah, it's so tonight's conversation we were going to be talking about the nature of mind, which is effectively what we talk about every week. But there's some aspects that we would like to kind of talk about tonight that we think are important. We think moving forward as a species, as a group of people, we think is a really important message. And Jenny and I are fairly certain that our world is moving into a new way of being. And this new way of being is going to be a new way of seeing things. A new emergence of mind on the planet. This is the way we're kind of seeing things at the moment. And it's something we're both interested in playing our part in. There's a shift in consciousness that's taking place right now. It's already happening. It's up and running. It's moving in a direction is life. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out as we move from from one way of seeing the world en masse, which is very much a materialistic worldview, to where we're seeing more and more and more people are becoming more interested into the nature of who they are and what is life, what is spiritual. Perhaps religion is quietening down. Religion's starting to take a bit of a backseat. But that doesn't mean people are stepping away from the spiritual. On the absolute contrary, we're seeing. And it's such a beautiful thing. I've got friends who are never in a million years would I ever have considered that they would be remotely interested in new ways of seeing stuff, in the spiritual, in the unobservable, in the immeasurable. But these people are coming out and they're showing interest, and we're really seeing an increase in people becoming interested. And so this is inevitably going to have a consequence on this world. It's inevitably going to have a consequence on politics. It's inevitably going to have a consequence on race relations. It's inevitably going to have a consequence on our social structure. This is going to be a really interesting time we go throughout the rest of our lives, as we start to see this emergence of what appears to be humanity starting to wake up to itself. And I think that's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
You want to say?
You're doing that. You finish saying what you're saying, and just look at me like, now speak. Yeah, I think it's like we're both hopeful, and I can see that is it's a personal thing in terms of it's what makes sense to us given how our reality shows up. But at the moment, it feels there is a momentum, and I think just seeing the shift from trying to have this conversation 15 years ago when I came across the principles, and people would ask me what I did, and some people would be interested. A lot of people would almost change the subject quite quickly, to now it seems anyone that I engage with seems to be interested in this. And it is people that maybe you wouldn't expect. I don't know why we have that idea about what someone who is going to be interested looks like or is like, but it's like from all walks of life. And the thing I love most about our last retreat is at different times we had between about 50 and 70 people on, and there was different ages, different religions, different genders, and it was just so inclusive. And I think that is the beautiful thing about this conversation, is that it is that neutral place. And I think the other thing that I've seen is the simplicity of the principles is almost like to reorientate you or align you. And when you reorientate and align, almost like the magic and the gifts within this world become more and more available to us. They're more and more visible.
Discoverable.
And visible.
Yeah.
And we were sat by the lake just before coming onto the call. So we went and sat by the lake for half an hour, and then we had dinner. And we watched these 3 geese take off. And like initially you see them and you can tell they're geese, and they're taking off from the water. And then they were flying into where the sun was setting. And as they flew off, like their shape was changing and they're becoming smaller. And I was saying, it just struck me like when we're very young, before we have an idea of space and perspective and that kind of thing, that would seem so miraculous, almost like a shape shifting. Like, oh, wow, it looked like that. And then it took off from the water and it flew, and then its shape changed. Because we had no concepts or ideas about, oh yeah, that's what birds do. And then when things are further away, they change, they look smaller. And I think what would happen if we stopped thinking we know everything and we looked at everything with that kind of like, wow, how is it possible that we so easily get caught in like the mundane, everyday, like a lot of people seem to just exist. And I think this understanding seems to realign us, wake us up, and you start having like new thought and yet like a wonderment, like, wow. And I think that's why I used to love hanging out with my nieces and nephews, because they had that wonderment at the world of like, wow, look at this stuff. They'd be interested in a flower, interested in a bird, interested in anything really. My mum and dad said, you know, they used to get the nieces and all these presents, and then they wanted to play with the wrapping paper or the ribbons or the boxes, not the really expensive presents. Like they're just the sound or the shape or making it into a
texture or
robot.
something, yeah.
And
They wanted to use their imagination, didn't they?
yeah, and I think we've moved so far away from the simplicity of presence here. And I think that's the beautiful thing. Like when we find ourselves present, there's learning and knowledge and insight and new thought available for us. And I know that so much of the thinking that I live out of, and I think they've kind of got some kind of percentage on this, is the same as kind of what I lived out yesterday. But it feels like this understanding, when I've keep being interested in what its message is, seems to like refresh, brings you something new, something that you haven't thought before, and you get to experience that sensation of newness. Like I remember the first time I went traveling, my sister met me for the last 3 months out in South America, and her boyfriend had basically grown up on cereal and cheese sandwiches. So he hadn't tried many different types of food. So when we were there, we got him to, like,
sounds like your dad.
We saw him try like his first ever banana, his first ever strawberry, and like so many things that he hadn't tried before. And he was like getting used to new flavors and textures. And it was so interesting seeing someone as an adult experiencing all this newness. And
What
I
did
think
his face look like?
I can't remember. He was quite sick actually. I don't think. Yeah, I think if you've eaten cheese sandwiches and cereal your whole life, and then you suddenly like introduce all this diverse.
Fructose.
Yeah, he lost a lot of weight actually, but it was funny. But it's that. What would happen if we stop thinking we know everything? What would happen if we find ourselves present to see what life shows up with? Like you get new ideas, new perspectives, and like it has been so interesting having conversations over this last year, because some people, it's all they can think about is the world situation, what's happening and what's going to happen. Other people, it's been a very personal thing about like a previous thing that's happened in their life they don't know how to let go of, or a desire for something they're not sure they're going to be able to have. And you can see the vast contrast in content of what people want to speak about.
Yeah, what people find important.
Yeah, but you can see that it is just the content that's different. Our idea that there is a problem or something that needs to change. And to the people who think, like I was talking to you about this, some of the things you've worried about at different times seem like righteous and important and holy, kind of like it's global, it's for this planet. And then some of the things that I've worried about seem so trivial in comparison. But you can see that the experience regardless of the content and regardless of how likely it is that it's ever going to happen. So I think the simplicity of the principles is a coming back to or a reminder of something already true and something you've already known, but it is not an end point.
No, it's not.
And it's not a goal. It's not something that you achieve or attain. It's something that we already are. And as we grow in respect for it and gratitude for our nature or the nature, I don't know, life becomes fun. Life becomes interesting.
We're quite lucky because we're Jenny and I and well, my family, because we all live in one house, we're in the childcare bubble for my ex-wife. which means I'm lucky on numerous levels to have an ex-wife who's got a beautiful partner now, Matt, and between them they've had 2 beautiful children, and we get to be part of it. I get to be part of my ex-wife's life. And you know, I had an affair and all hell broke loose, and I left her for another woman, and it was a very difficult time for everybody. And yet, in spite of all that's gone on, all the people she could have chosen to be part of her childcare bubble, she asked for us to be part of it. So we get to go and be part of this family, and we get to see my family. It's my extended family. They're still part of my family. My ex-wife's certainly still part of my family. There's still an awful lot of love for everybody there, like. But we get to see the kids. It was so beautiful the other week. We were around there, and we were giving them a hand, like. And I was just watching Ren, who's 2 years old. She could not stand still. Her body, she'd just suddenly start jumping up the spot. Dead excited jumping. Then she'd be climbing up a climbing frame, and she'd start screaming. Then she starts singing something. Could see the excitement coursing through her. You know, you and I would look at it and we'd go, there's nothing to be excited about here. It wasn't about that. It wasn't about there's nothing to be excited about here. It was just pure enjoyment of being. Just the pure enjoyment of being. I recognized it instantly. It was like, bang, there it is. There is the pure enjoyment of just creating right here, right now. And right now I'm creating this song, and right now I'm creating this excited feeling just because I'm here in this physical experience, in this physical body, in this physical reality. I get to play in this physical reality. I've come into this physical reality for a finite amount of time. And here I am right at the beginning. It was such a beautiful moment. I pointed it out to you. And just this little kid just loving life. Absolutely loving life. In spite of everything that's going on in the world, she was absolutely loving her life. Now, you could put that down to naivety. But if she knew all the things that were going on in the world. No. It has nothing to do with what's going on in the world. This is something that I feel like you can get a sense of, you can see it clearly. You'll still get tripped up. You'll still fall flat on your face sometimes with it. You know, this is anybody who thinks that they come across something that they never trip up, or they're aiming for a space where they never trip up, or they never enter into a period of darkness. I suggest you take that belief and just bin it. That's one of the greatest causes of suffering going, is the belief that there will come a time in this lifetime where I won't find something hard. That belief right there is singularly one of the greatest causes of suffering. It creates more suffering than what it actually aims for. Like Jen said, you know, I can go into my mind sometimes. I can enter into periods of darkness. I can enter the pit. Not very often these days, but I have done. Last few months, I've entered into a pit of darkness, which I've emerged from, it appears. It's funny, every single time I enter these places, I've entered into them. I've always dreaded it. You know, that's why I used to go and see psychiatrists and psychologists, because I really didn't want to be there. My mind creating what I don't want it to create. Create anything but this, in fact. What I love about the mind is it's like a raccoon. And the reason why I say a raccoon is because I love raccoons. They tried to do a study on how try to measure the intelligence of animals. They could not measure the intelligence of a raccoon because it did not give a shit what it was asking. People were asking them to do. They just did whatever they wanted to do. And so they came to the conclusion that raccoons are really, really intelligent, but they can't decide how intelligent because they're so unruly. Sometimes our minds can become unruly. And I think this is something we have to get humble about. There seems to be a beauty to it. People want to be able to control their thoughts. People think they should be able to control their thoughts. I see a problem with that personally. If humanity controlled its thoughts, it would never evolve. It would hold itself stuck static. It would find where it wanted to be and it wouldn't move. There'd be no progress. There'd be no growth. There'd be no new opportunities. There'd be no new technologies. There'd be no betterment. There'd be no progress. There'd be no movement towards love, no more movement towards connection, no more movement towards beauty. This all takes place because humanity does not control its own thoughts. That's not to say, I mean, we have to understand the paradox of the mind. As much as we don't control our thoughts, we use thought. If I ask anybody the name, usually they come out with the correct answer. You can come up with the correct answer without thought. So if we're trying to fit the mind into something that starts at A and ends at B, you won't find it. If you're trying to find something within the understanding of mind that's a linear pattern, you won't find it. Mind's mental. Mind's like a million magic mushrooms on acid. You cannot possibly explain it. Nobody can explain mind. And I think that's what makes this such a beautiful thing. Because as long as there are mysteries and as long as there is magic, we can all be like Ren, my little niece, whatever you want to call her, my ex-wife's baby. We can all sit in the pure enjoyment of creation and understand that what we are creating is born of spiritual. We're all born of this spiritual essence. We use this spiritual essence to create our experience here on life. From birth to death, we are given the gift to create life however we wish. It's our gift. But Dave, you just said I don't control my mind, so therefore I don't create these thoughts. Who else is creating them? God. Oh, no, you've separated yourself from God. No, we all have the capacity to create. We all have the free will to create our lives. And sometimes it creates suffering. Sometimes we create suffering. But what I love about the suffering, one of the things I am starting to really appreciate and find gratitude for in the suffering is the growth. The thing that I always ran away from in my life was the thing that brought me the most beauty. I used to say quite dramatically that I walked through the gates of hell and I found heaven. I found heaven existed in the least expectant place. To go into these places of suffering, of darkness. This is where humanity is heading at the moment. So much of humanity is suffering so deeply. It's on so many people are on the verge of waking up. Because so many people are suffering so deeply. The perfection, the beauty in what's taking place on this earth mustn't be overlooked. We're entering into a time of rapid change, rapid awakening. When was the last time the world sat still and everybody had time to contemplate? When was the last time people were left alone with their own minds? I think there's good things coming to this world. I think we're going to see some fantastic things taking place over this next few years and into the next couple of decades. Things that we cannot possibly comprehend, because when our consciousness shifts, whole new opportunities arise, whole new potentials. We get to become aware of things we were never aware of. All this is existent within the mind that we sit in this very present moment. And this is why we always say, this isn't a conversation about, many people want to talk about their thoughts. Content. But I have this thought, Dave, and I have that thought, Dave. I have this thought, Jen, I have that thought, Jen. Yeah, you do. Yeah. What is it? What is it in its essence? What is the thing that you're afraid of? We need to start looking bigger picture. This is what the principles bring. They bring a bigger picture into life. And when you ask bigger questions, you get bigger answers. And the bigger answers are really what everybody's looking for. Really, people do not want to find an answer to, how do I stop these negative thoughts, or if you want to call them negative thoughts. People really don't want that answer. Oh, I do. No, you don't. What we really want to know is, what is this all about? Who am I? What's life? How powerful actually am I? What am I? What am I doing here? Why is all this? What is all this? Because when we start to find the answer to that, you start to find the answer to all your problems. You start to find the magic in life. You see, there aren't really such a thing as a problem. There isn't such a thing as a problem. Problems are perspectives of thought. They're thoughts. Problems are thoughts, not things.
It was interesting when we were talking to that 8-year-old the other day, and he just said, I can't really remember going to the co-op without there being queues and masks. So it's not really, he said he didn't really think about it. He doesn't remember before it. And I just thought that was such a beauty. And then we're talking to him about the internet. We're talking to him about when we were younger. Initially, growing up, had a black and white television, and often you'd wake up too early, so there wouldn't be any. You'd have to wait. There'd just be like a screen. And we're telling him this stuff, and it's like he found it fascinating. But then you realise how easy it is to forget the way in which we view the world is totally individual and totally built on
our experience.
And to hear this little kid be like, yeah, well, I don't remember it before, so it's not really a problem. I think the amount of times that I've whinged about having to put on a mask or whinged about the queue, and it's a problem. To him, it's a no thing. It's just what you do. And I think that, then I was saying to you afterwards, like, we have so much belief that seems so necessary and so worthy and so important, but it's our beliefs that we suffer, because we want things to be a certain way, we want ourselves to show up a certain way, we want the world to be a certain way. And like in so many of Sid's talks, he spoke about becoming beliefless. he was aware in his talks that he'd just say anything, whatever occurred to him in the moment. I thought he was a fantastic speaker because he'd sometimes completely contradict himself, but he knew that it wasn't a yes or no question or a right and wrong. The contradiction exists because of the way we view the world, and we want things to either be true or false, right or wrong. But when he spoke about the space of no thought, becoming beliefless, and that, in a way, is describing presence. And I've got a friend who has had incredible experiences, and we spoke to him just recently. Like, I feel like he has had a deep enlightenment many years ago. And I was really surprised about the decision he's made, about like a medical thing. And I think one of the things I got from our conversation is like, I have all these ideas and beliefs that I hold on to and I view life through, as if I know something, as if and it's who I am. What I got from the conversation we had with him was that he shows up in the moment and does what makes sense. He doesn't seem to carry around with him such an identity or ego of I do this in this situation, or I don't do that.
This is what I stand for.
Yeah, and it was such an interesting, because it was a completely opposite. What he chose to do was opposite to what I thought he would do, because of who I think he is and the experience I think he's had. And it really threw me. But it was cool because I was like, wow, I'm so fixed in so many of my beliefs. And I'll argue them, or not even argue them. I'll quietly think, if only you knew what I knew. I know the truth. And I think that's the beautiful thing. Like, there's so many indicators of when we're getting lost in ego. That righteous feeling, that kind of feeling of defense. And I think we all fight those things and think they're wrong or we should be different. And it's like, no, they're just waking you up. You're lost in the world of form. Life looks as you believe, and you will experience that. It's not right and wrong, good and bad. And I think that's the beauty of this, is that so many of us can live in such judgment of how we have been or how we are being. And like, I had a conversation with my friend earlier, and he said, oh, well, I didn't even do it on purpose, and the way that they spoke to me, they shouldn't speak to me like that. But then he's like, yeah, but I'm aware that they grew up in a different family and it's just normal to speak like that. Yes, but I think there must be a middle path, because that's not acceptable. And I don't know, I feel like there's so much nonsense.
Stories, aren't they?
Well, just nonsense. And I know I totally get lost in it, and sometimes phone up my sister so that we can get lost in it together. The nonsense that seems so important. And it is those moments when you see Ren absolutely just excited to be alive. Like, they'd all had COVID, so they'd been isolating for about 3 weeks. We hadn't been able to see them, just to make sure. And I don't know, they said that it hadn't really touched her radar. Like, she has missed going to nursery, but apart from that, I'm alive. I'm going to climb.
Dancing and playing, wasn't she?
I'm going to sing to you. I'm going to talk to my brother. And it's so simple. And it's right in front of us. Because we also got to see her have a tantrum. Like, something really annoyed her in a moment. And then suddenly her attention shifted again. And
It's pure creation.
yeah, not like looking back and I can't believe I was like that. I shouldn't have been like that. She was just so moment to moment to moment to moment. And it was joyous to be around her. And I was like, any help we can give you, we'd love to, because
It's fun.
it's like being around a little guru. She just taught us so much. And then her little brother is getting to the point now where he's aware that he might be able to move soon. So it's like he can almost crawl, but not quite. And he's making this frustrated noise almost constantly, like he wants to join in, but he can't actually get to everyone. And it's just, again, like, in the moment, what's going on for him is like he's trying to get to his sister and he can't actually move, so then he gets frustrated. But there doesn't seem to be that extra level of, I shouldn't be feeling frustrated, or I might be annoying people that I'm making this noise. He's just all about these noises. And sometimes he just screeches and all kinds of things. And I think, God, we seem to move so far from that. we complicate life so much, and we take on so much knowledge, so many other people's ideas, and it's almost like we've lost sight of, I think you called it the fountain of knowledge, that's constantly refreshing, that we are all part of, we all have access to. And it's like, you can have the same water going round and round and round, and it gets, or you can get fresh water. What are you looking for?
Just going to message Paul.
Might as well say it now.
Paul, do you want to talk a bit about what you were saying?
I certainly can. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, for people who don't know Paul, this is Paul, Big Mac, 6'6", good lad he is. Yeah, we're speaking to Paul and we're asking if he'd just like to share a bit about what he's come to see. So, yeah, thanks for joining us, Paul, and thanks for being on.
My pleasure. Just want to apologise already, which I know now, stupid thing. I know it's my ego that's apologising, because my nerves have went like through the roof since Jen asked us if I would do a share. I'm happy to talk pretty much every week, but now that it's a planned talk, my head's like in a spin, thinking, what do I need to say? How do I say it? Because like Heidi, you spoke the other week. Public speaking is my own, other than the fear of myself, which I've had all my life. It's the only thing I've been scared of. Public speaking. When I got married, my speech lasted about sub 30 seconds. And that's the only public speaking I've done up until I set up a men's mental health support group over a year ago. And so that's my apology in case I waffle, which I am now. I've spent my entire life thinking I've been broken, that I've been different to my family and I haven't fitted in the same as my brother, who was like really like goody two shoes, who like just breezed through school, and I was under constant threat of being suspended because someone would take the piss out of us being ginger and big, so therefore it would be a fight. And yeah, and I thought that your entire life is kind of pre-planned from your nature and your nurture. So who you are is who you are, and that will never change. There's a set ruling. So I was angry, I was protective, I was funny, but I was also up and down like a yo-yo. And I thought, that's it. And I finally, after getting a lot of advice from a friend, I went in to kind of look into it a bit more about mental health, because the downs started getting really like bottom of a cliff downs, to the point where I got involved in drugs and addiction and anger issues, and my whole life kind of spiraled. And I got into the mental health industry, the sector, to get help, looking for an answer, looking for a label for myself. So I thought that's how you get taught. You get taught to listen to medical trained people. They know better. And so I've spent years doing CBT, anger management, various antidepressants, and that, I think it was a blessing that I did it, because everything, now that I know, everything happens perfectly to get you to this moment. And without those steps, I wouldn't have listened properly on that first retreat in end of October, November. So I'm grateful for them, but I now know they don't work. They mean absolutely nothing, the mental health industry, unless I think you've got like real issue of dependency on people. Other than that, I think it just pushed us further down the rabbit hole, because even when I was getting all this, like the CBT and things, I was still getting these manic low points or self-abuse of punching brick walls, punching lampposts. God help someone if they played rugby against us and I was having a bad day. I would want to, if someone looked at my brother wrong, I would want to pull their head off. And I thought that was me, but just being protective and me kind of lashing out. And I thought that's who I was. I thought I had a set ruling of who I am and like a set, like a computer program, and there's preconceived ideas, that rules that you have to stick to. And then through all that, as I say, I set up a men's mental health support group because the biggest thing I got from it all was talking. Men, we have like it's drilled into a lot of us that you don't talk, you soldier on. Emotions are for people say it's for like women. They're in touch with
Ladies.
emotions, men aren't. Eh?
For ladies.
For ladies, yes. And I was part of that. Like I worked as a doorman when I was 17. I've worked in the building industry, and none of those places are a kind place for a man to like turn around to one of his colleagues and say that they're really struggling, or to have like a few teas or something. And it's the most fake thing. Now that I've seen all this, it's the most like fake and idiotic way of living possible. So I set up a men's mental health support group because the only thing I found from the mental health was talking helped to open up and be kind of truthful about how you're feeling. So I set this up last year, but then lockdown happened. Cut a long story short, it's on the back burner because all the guys who were coming were too secretive and they didn't want to do it at home online. And through this year, during the lockdown, me down times have been like coming a bit more regular. And in October, I think the 15th, I'd been doing a little electrical job. I'm an electrician by trade, and I was working at one of my cousins got a couple of bars, and I was working at one of his venues. And I'd done this couple of hours work, had some food there on the slide behind the roller shutters, had 2 glasses of wine, and then I thought, right, get yourself home, don't have a late one. And as I was walking home, I just convinced myself that I was pointless to this world and to myself. I just wasn't happy. And when I got home, I got me tablets that I was taking at the time to calm us down and help us sleep. And I just grabbed a handful of them and took them. Not from a prolonged period of feeling crap, just from literally a half an hour walk home. And then I'd convinced myself that that's what I need to do. And the next day, really confused because I was really hyper and happy. And my ex got us on to do this retreat on, I think it was end of October or very early November. And on day one, David said a few things about nature and the power of thought and how the thought of suicide is no different to thinking about what flavour yogurt you're going to have. And that one sentence just absolutely shattered everything that I'd ever believed in myself. I knew at that point that who I am is who I choose to be. I'd spent my entire life being so self-critical. And then because I was self-critical, I was then unleashing that on the rest of the world and being judgmental and critical on everyone and building up boundaries and putting walls up against certain people and not letting people into parts of my life that I felt ashamed of or anything that was deemed as negative. I would only show people what I thought was a good aspect of my life. And as I say, I think we broke for lunch on the first day, and I went out for a walk. Went out to walk the dog with Claire, and while I was out, it was like, do Do you know those the change machines that you get in supermarkets where you put all like your bags of pennies and 2 pences and things? It wasn't a penny dropping. It was like that machine emptying. It was like just signals just pinging in my head. It was like, shit. I've chose all of the things that have happened. I dwelled on the past. I had an ex who used to hit us after about, I was with her for 7 years. And after about 3 years, she started hitting us like nigh on a daily basis. And I couldn't tell anyone because I was so scared that the person I am, Paul Mackey, this big 6'6", 20 stone, angry ginger bloke, how can he tell people that he's scared of his partner who's hitting him? Or how can he not do something back? I worked as a bouncer from 17-year-old. I could handle a gang of men at 17 and deal with them and get them out of a bar. How can I not deal with this 5'1" woman? And I held on to that, and I believed strongly that the abuse from her is the reason why the drug use became an addiction. But now I can see that the only reason there was an addiction is because I chose that to be an addiction. I chose in that moment, every time I've used drugs, I've chose to use. And all of these connections, like wires getting connected to make it understandable for me, it was like making connections with wires and all of a sudden lights working in these dark places. And it was like, shit, I'm doing this. The pain I've put myself through for years and years is down to me. And I used to think that I am like a carbon copy of my dad. Yes, I might look like him. I've got the same build as him. And I used to blame him for that. I used to blame him because I was angry. The only reason I'm angry is because I'm choosing to be angry. I'm letting something upset us, and then rather than letting something pass, I'm feeling that I've got to act on it. I used to shout and scream if someone cut us up in a car. After that first retreat, I was driving along with Claire and someone cut us up, and Claire was waiting for the outburst of like obscenities in the car and like the gripping the steering wheel and trying to pull it out of its socket. And I just sat and smiled and said, God, he must be in a hurry. And it was like, when I did that, it was like, God, I was just getting more and more proof, more and more insight as to how everything in my life, pretty much, I'm in control of. I can control if I want to like lose my temper over something, and the only person it's going to hurt is me. The amount of like, is it cortisol that you get when you get an adrenaline rush, and it's harmful, I believe, for your body. The amount I must have put like gallons of that stuff through my body from like all the angry outbursts I've had, and I've chosen that because I thought all these rules, the ego is who I am, and it'll never change. And I've always felt that I'm searching to be normal. That's why I've got into to seek mental health help and tablets, and I used to use drugs to feel normal. And after that first retreat, there was just, as I say, all these like insights, all these connections being made. And when the entire world is struggling during this lockdown, I had the best Christmas and the best New Year I have ever had. And I did nothing special other than spend time with people I love. I had work cancelled right before Christmas, so money was non-existent right before Christmas. And it didn't matter. Now, normally that would have sent us on a massive search for drugs, for something to make me feel better, on how to deal with not having money, for presents, for fun things around like the festive time and New Year. And I had the most normal and beautiful Christmas and New Year I have ever had in my entire life. And I'm glad Dave mentioned earlier about how we can all still go to these dark places and we can fall. The last week, I've been on a bit of a low now and again, and I now see, I think Jen just said a little bit earlier tonight, that when you start seeing that you're being maybe a bit judgmental and you jump on your soapbox, that there almost triggers us to your ego kicking in. And I've been whinging about certain things, like really simple things that mean nothing, like going on the internet and looking for a tire. And that meant so much this morning that I was getting really pissed off with how Ford garages work and things like that. And now I can see it's just my ego kind of reminding you that you're going down that rabbit hole. And that goes back to the Christmas and New Year. Everything was great, and I got a trigger from something in my life about moving forward. Kind of an issue got brought up, or well, I made it into an issue about planning for the future, and it led us into this dark questioning part of the ego, of feeling not good enough and questioning who I am. And I instinctively, well, not immediately, I chose to go back to my old way of coping, and I ended up stealing and using drugs. And because I thought I had it, I thought, I'll be able to use this once because I know about these 3 principles now. So if I use this once, I'll be absolutely fine. And the second I used, I felt like almost like Jekyll and Hyde. Everything I've learned about opening up, being truthful, being the real you, basically not listening to your thoughts, all just got ripped away and like locked in a cupboard. It felt like a different person. And then the lies came afterwards about the drug use, and it pulled us apart from everything that I could see was going good in my life. And that put us into this dark spin of, like, when I was letting my ego kick in, it was put us in this dark spin of life shit again. You've got nothing to live for. And luckily, Dave was on hand and kind of, there was a few strong words, and he offered us a lot of support and has been an amazing friend through it all, and daily phone calls. And it's making us like realize and be able to see how everything that's negative in my life is solely controlled by me. You can have a bad experience. Whether you want to hold on to it is entirely up to yourself. And I held on to all of this like baggage all my life and used that as an excuse to ruin things. And then this 3 principles, which I'm still, when I catch myself like running away with my head, I can now just say, and sorry for the language, I can just say like, it's just a thought. And the moods that used to last for days or weeks disappear in like a cloud passing by. And I think was it New Year? I sent you a message, Dave and Jen. It was a big message for us. It took us like quite a while to write it out. The drugs used to make us feel normal, and acting big and tough would be a suit of armor against people. And it was all to cover up the fact that I was so insecure and had such little respect and love for myself. And because of this knowledge, this experience I've now had with the three principles, I do have a genuine love for myself. It feels feels like cheesy saying it, because I never thought I would. Because when Claire has tried helping us in the past with advice and talking to us about my ego and beliefs and feelings, and I'm like, oh, I'm really not interested. I'm not interested in this like new age hippie peace love, because I thought the world's in turmoil, I'm in turmoil. That's how it is, and if you're not in that, then you're just lucky. And
Or delusional.
I'm one of them lucky people now. Yeah, I'm having tough times, even like recently, but every day there's a smile, and I know that the tough times, I know that they're just reminders. I don't think there's been anything of recent that has ran away. And I've seen after the last retreat, if I know some of you will have been on it, I had a little bit of an outburst on the last year, which I did apologise, and I'll apologise for it again. I've lied all my life. Well, I've lied all my adult life around my use of drugs and things like that, and about, I suppose, lying about who I am. And all those lies came so easy, so natural. And when I lied a couple of weeks after New Year about stealing and this drug use again, I finally saw the cost of lying and how damaging it is to your world. And one of the main ways I learned about how powerful the truth is, I was so uncomfortable saying to everyone on that third day that I wanted everyone to take their piece and their loving stories and off my screen, kind of thing. And when I said that, I got nothing but, I was waiting for a bad reaction from people. I was waiting for like Jen and Dave to say, sorry, Paul, we're going to have to like kick you off for now till you calm down or something. And I got nothing but love from people. And I was building it up to something. It was my thoughts building even that experience up before it happened. I was waiting for something negative to come back from it. And all I got was peace and love from it. And then Dave, 10 minutes after I said it, said, how are you feeling now? And I was smiling. And that was all because I said something I thought was going to be a real ugly truth. But it turned out to be something quite beautiful, I think. So if anyone else is new to this, or if anyone, I think the only thing that I've really picked up on is I don't want to go deep into this. I want to stay as new as I can in this whole idea of the three principles. Every day is fresh then. Every experience is fresh. I see things through the eyes of a kid when it comes to a lot of my experiences now. And I'm so grateful for that. So I'll say thank you to Jen and Dave for that, for passing on that knowledge. And thank you to Claire for getting us on, for bending me arm to get us onto that retreat. And all the advice that you've given us for a long, long time about ego and all that. And thank you to everyone for listening. I hope I haven't went in different directions too much.
Soft lad. That was beautiful, dude. I loved what you said right at the end. That you said right at the end. When you said, I don't want to get too deep into all this. I just want to stay at the beginning. I think that's pretty much what you said.
Yeah. The journey's more exciting at the beginning. You're not excited when you finish a journey, or your excitement is lessened at the end of a journey. At the beginning, you're always looking forward to see what's happening, what's going to happen, what's around the corner, what's happening right now.
Love that, buddy. I feel like it can be a really easy trap for people to find themselves in. I've done it. You find yourself in this trap of, it's interesting. I just want to see if you can see what I'm talking about here, because I don't think there's anybody on this screen who hasn't had, in some form or another, an awakening to what the principles are talking about. That's why we're all here, because we've all had our own experiences of something where we've kind of gone, it's so interesting. Because I can guarantee that whoever I speak to on this screen, and I was to say to them, how did you do it? They go, I don't know, just happened. Were you looking for what you found? No. No, I wasn't looking for that. I started listening because I had this problem, and then I found this experience. I found this realization that took place within me. And you realize that what you found, Paul, you never knew to look for that.
No, I started listening because it was to shut Claire up from asking us to go to join her on this retreat.
She's a bright girl, man.
Yeah.
But then, that, if you go back to the beginning again, none of us actually knew what we were searching for. And then we have this realization, we have some form of realization, we have some insight, we have some kind of experience where we kind of get this sense of something, or perhaps we realize something, however you want to describe it. Then we start searching for more. Even though the first thing we found was a mystery, and we never knew to look for that. We go searching for the mystery. We go searching for something that we don't actually know what we're looking for. Because ultimately what we're looking for isn't something that we already know, otherwise we'd already know it. So how can we know what we're looking for? And I love that, Paul, when you go back to the beginning, if you can find yourself, Buddhism calls it beginner's mind, In Buddhism, they call it beginner's mind. If you can stay in beginner's mind, what's a beginner? Well, it's just fucking green, doesn't know a thing. It's like if we can realize that point. Because I remember when I woke up to this, it was like, I didn't know to look for that. I never knew it existed. And then I started to get interested and I listened. It's not that I don't listen, I still listen. But when I started to get involved in the three principles and started to listen to the way people shared, I created all these concepts and things, and I really lost the magic. And it was only when I had an insight on a Via Ferrata in Switzerland, it was 800 meters up, I think, up this cliff. It was a kilometer high cliff. I remember this insight just saying, go back to the beginning. What was there? And in my mind, I was taken back to the beginning, and it was like, oh, yeah, you don't know anything. You don't know what you're looking for. Just live. Just live and learn. Just live and learn. Just live and learn. Stop searching. Just live. And I love that, because I made a couple of notes of things that you said. You spoke about how you had the most, quote, normal but beautiful Christmas.
Yeah. I think a good portion of me adult life, actually a huge portion of my life, I've been feeling uncomfortable in my own skin. Hence this ego. It was a pretty strong ego. I'll give it some respect. It was pretty formidable. But it's kind of it's matched now. I was so rigid with who I was, and I don't need to do this kind of help. No, I don't need. I'm speaking to doctors, so I don't need to do anything else. I'm doing my best because they're the best people. They're trained, and I was so convinced on who I am, who I was, is who I am going to be, and my ego, as I say, was taken over before this group started tonight, and I was thinking of ways I can get out of not speaking. I was thinking, like, how can I say I'm not going to be here so I don't have to share? And I was like, fuck, that's my ego again. It's just, I'm not scared to talk.
Lockdown, I've got nowhere else to be.
I'm not scared to talk. I don't have any fears. So the only reason that's coming in is because it's my ego creeping in. And the rules of who I am, I thought I would be in the same job role my entire life. I thought I'd be in like the building industry forever. And now I'm not saying I can be anything. I'm not saying I'm going to be, some kind of author or wordsmith, because as I say, I'm still struggling with words a little bit. But I know that there's a potential to be anything I want to be now.
You know, if you listen to some spiritual teachers, they would say that's what awakening is. That's what enlightenment is. When people are asked to describe what is enlightenment, it's when an individual wakes up and realizes the creator within themselves is the creator. They can create whatever life they desire. That's what some people describe enlightenment as. When the creator wakes up within themselves, realizes that they are the creator of their life. It's really quite simple, really. It's nothing, it's not even anything particularly mysterious. It's really kind of blatantly obvious and simple and normal. Everybody is that enlightened state. But as you just said, you becoming, as you were describing your ego just then, it's like, so much of our lives we have spent or we spend being a slave to our ego. Well, what is the ego? It's a ball of beliefs. It's a ball of thoughts. It's who we think we are. It's who we think they are. It's how we think that works. It's what we think that is over there. And, you know, there is a vast difference in somebody's life when they become aware of their ego. Suddenly you have this awareness. It's like, fucking hell, I'm feeling really uncomfortable right now. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'll just ask you the question. Before you became aware of what you were aware of, would you have followed those thoughts, or would you have got to the place where you are now and kind of fucked them off and got on with it? How would it have been for you?
For what? Sorry, like explain again.
Yeah, I didn't feel like I worded that very well at all. If, when you just described about, you know, you were feeling really, really nervous before you came on and you were looking for ways to get out, your mind was generating ideas of ways to get out of it. Before coming across the principles, if you'd had those kind of thoughts, what would you have done? Would you have carried on the way you have and sat down and just got on with it? Or would you have probably just tried to figure out your way out of it and got out of it?
You know, if it was something really big, like what I kind of popped the cherry of me public speaking virginity, shall we say, when I was invited by the rugby club that I used to play at to do a speech for me men's mental health support group at the players' dinner, but they asked us, they were very clever about it. One of the rugby guys asked us at me group in front of men, the group was all about promoting men talk. So I couldn't say no, and that was a really big event. It was like, I thought it was going to be about 50 people there, and it wasn't even at the rugby club, it was at a big hotel with one of the England rugby players who won the World Cup as a guest speaker. And there was about 350 people there. And the fear that day was tearing us apart, like pulling us, like I was vomiting, I couldn't eat. my tongue was like sticking to the roof of my mouth, and really like bricking it all day. And that I couldn't get out of it. I knew I had to do it. I knew it was the best thing. And this group, with today being like kind of unplanned, and you asked us like at tea time today, the first thing, because I've been feeling a little bit down in the last few days, the first thing that came to my head was like, God, that's really nice that they've asked you to do that. And instantly, the ego voice just went, you'll never talk in front of people tonight. Think of an excuse, get out of it, get out of it. So I honestly, I think on hand on heart say, I would have backed out of it. If it had been something that was pre-planned from weeks ago, then I would have built myself up and I would have probably wrote some kind of like speech and practiced. So because this was kind of ad hoc, I think I would have backed out of it, and I would have said I'm at a job, or I'm not well. And the 3 principles really has shown us that I can just do whatever I want. The only reason I'm scared to speak is because I'm telling myself I'm scared to speak.
I love that. You know, it's just awareness. That's all it is. It's not that you don't have these thoughts. Everybody thinks that what they're searching for is, when I no longer have these thoughts, then I'll be all right. I want to really emphasize this point. I really want to emphasize this point. You have to forgive Jenny. Rusty's been an absolute nightmare. Everybody thinks it's a case of, I'll be all right when I don't have these thoughts. No. No. That really isn't the case. That's not really what we're looking for. What we're looking for is the awareness that the thoughts are nothing to be afraid of. What if you could have the thoughts and you understood the nature of them, that ultimately, you know, they're thoughts. They have no more power than any other thought. What if it's what we're truly looking for is our relationship to thought to change? You trying to stop a thought, it's impossible. You cannot stop a thought from entering your head. It's totally and utterly impossible. Nobody can do it. Nobody can stop a thought from entering their head. First of all, you have to become aware of the thought to think it shouldn't be there. It's too late. And the moment you've thought it, it's immediately in the past. It's too late. Too late. Too late. You know, if we could stop our thoughts, that would mean we could take a step forward in time, choose the thought, come back to now. We can't do that. What we're really looking for is we're looking for understanding as to the nature of thought. And yet the nature of thought is it's the creative medium of reality. Both on a personal, psychological level and on a world physical level. But when you start to gain awareness, it's like Paul, where you were describing there, it's like you can have all these thoughts. Ooh, you know, you can have your old habitual thoughts. Oh, no, you know, I don't like public speaking. You can have these habitual thoughts. I have habitual thoughts. I went for a beautiful walk with Jenny before, and for some reason I started thinking about it. Some really violent thoughts were coming into my head. I became aware of them. Oh, look at you, look what you're doing. Look what you're doing. And the moment I became aware of them, then I had an option. I don't want to look at that. I just started looking at the trees after. Oh, look at the trees, look at that. Sooner look at the trees than look at that bullshit. You realize you do have choice. You do have free will. Sometimes it's not apparent. Sometimes you really fucking struggle to get rid of the thoughts. Sometimes we're desperate to get rid of thoughts. That is the time I really feel like the ego is really showing itself. There's something in there for us to learn. Because if you look at the nature of life, you learn continuously throughout life. From birth to death, you learn. Everybody learns. That's not without mistake. That's not a mistake. That's not just a bit of an anomaly about life. You learn. No, it's absolutely functional and perfect and beautiful. You get to be born into this life. You get to move through this life and you get to learn along the way. You get to grow. Spiritually, you get to grow. Now, what happens after this life? We'll all find out. But what we learn in this lifetime is not going to go to waste. It's beautiful. And that's why we're all here. We're all here to learn. We're all here to grow. We're all here to play. We're all here to create. We're all here to love. We're all here to connect. It seems like I've never come across somebody who's woken up and then preached hate. I've never met anybody who, or had listened or heard of anybody who woke up and then said, don't like those people, don't like those people. They've all spoken love, just love one another. It's dead simple. Just love one another. Find that connection. And I love what you spoke about, Paul, your humility around what happened after Christmas. It was a deeply humbling learning curve for you. And we all have those. The key is realizing it's a deeply humbling learning curve. And it's having the humility to see it for what it is. If there's one thing I feel like the principles does bring to an individual's life, it's humility. First of all, it'll bring arrogance. It will. It did for me, certainly. I know it did for you as well. It brings you arrogance.
I don't know, I don't think initially it did. It was just then you start getting cocky, thinking,
You start.
I'm not ever going to do that again.
You start to think you've got one over on life.
If only people knew what I knew.
Yeah. For you, it was like, how can you ever be insecure?
Shy.
How can you ever be shy? And for me, it was just, I just got cocky and thought I fucking knew something. And then life humbles you. And this is the beautiful thing. I'm so thankful life humbles. I'm so thankful that life brings with it its challenges. Because every time, which in the Bible it talks about, one of the disciples spoke about, when you meet challenges, meet them smiling. Because they're preparing you for something new, they're bringing you growth. One thing we don't tend to do too much in our culture nowadays is meet our challenges smiling. We fight everything. We fight everything. We're fighters. Fight cancer, fight mental health, fight this, fight that, fight COVID. Let's fight. Our language is all about fighting. When are we going to stop fighting? When are we going to stop fighting?
Yeah, that's been my language my entire life.
Yeah.
Every day is a fight. I'll fight through this.
That's right. It's in the language, you know.
Yeah.
We what is fight? It's resistance to what is. That's what fighting is. I personally see or feel like acceptance is the greatest healer of all things, even down to the physical. It heals wars, it heals psychological pain, it heals the body. It heals rifts between cultures, acceptance. There's no war in acceptance, there's no fighting in acceptance. We're mental creatures at the moment. We need what's happening to happen. We need to go through this time of breaking down of how the world appears to be, the breaking down of old systems. We need it. We can't continue the way we are.
I think it's almost, you see it is, we are a microcosm of the macrocosm. So when there is old systems breaking down, and in almost like the time when the new ones are kind of haven't quite been formed yet, there's this discomfort and like
uncertainty.
Yeah, and it's unsettling. And it's the same in our character when we've had certain characteristics or aspects of our character that start to crumble, and then we're kind of in the period before something else has emerged and been created. It's like it's an unsettling time. But you can see that it is the nature of nature. And I don't know, you get to see, whenever we watched a brilliant thing on fungus, Fantastic Fungi, I think it was called.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's definitely
Watch it.
worth
Is it
watching.
Netflix?
No, it's on Vimeo.
Oh yeah,
It's like £2.50 or something.
brilliant.
But it was showing how like everything, it has life, and then it dies and decays, but it goes back into the soil and the earth, and then is reborn. And like you could kind of look at you know, when you've got fruit in your fruit bowl and it started to get mold on it and it seems bad, but it's like without this fungus breaking stuff down, there wouldn't be this regrowth and this newness. And like in our characters, it can seem like depression or anxiety or fear is almost like the fungus or something, but sometimes it's like what's necessary to break something down, to wake you up to a character or an aspect of yourself,
To feed the new.
to allow the new. And I think we're so used to only wanting to see what we consider to be the right life or the good life. And I think I've loved seeing how many mirrors there are in nature. Like when you really look, we're part of this greater whole, and then we're just like a reflection of it. We're a small part of it. And then what's happening within our bodies is the same. Like there's this breaking down of old in the creation then of new with the energy. And you're just like, wow, we are so part of something incredible.
It's so big, isn't it?
It's just beyond words.
You can't comprehend it.
I don't know if we said it last week, but I remember just being out on a walk with you on day 2 of a 4-day intensive we were doing with someone. And it had been like the sky had fallen in for about 2 weeks, and it just been like white everywhere. And suddenly that day it cleared out, and we went out for a walk that night. And when we looked up, it was the clearest sky. You could see the Milky Way, the stars were out. And I was just like, I felt so small and so insignificant, but not in a bad way. And we watched a really brief video earlier about it's about the Earth, and it's called Blue Dot. And it's about, you know, as we zoom out and out and out and out, and you actually see this planet in which we live in, where it is in the vastness, and how serious and important we take so much stuff. You can see like it's that whole, when we have a problem and we look at it like that, it seems like everything. And as you zoom out and out and out, and all these different perspectives you can have, it can get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where it vanishes. Because from that space, there is no problem. When it's like that, it's a huge problem. Again, it's perspective. But I think the learning is, I had been around the principles for such a long time, and I'd kind of got this idea that the learning took place through being around the principles, sharing the principles, talking about the principles, reading about the principles. And then I realized, no, the principles, and like Sid used to say it, like, yes, come to conferences, connect, be with people, listen to a talk, but then live. What you're looking for exists all around you. There's lessons, there's reminders everywhere. And when you start getting eyes for that, then it is the night sky suddenly becomes your teacher, or the way in which fungus breaks down matter to then rejuvenate becomes your teacher. And I think that's the incredible thing. We think, I think it's said somewhere that we think truth is hiding from us. Like, no, it's hidden in plain sight. It's everywhere. It's within life. It's within everything. It's not hidden. But we're just so preoccupied with, like, so often it'd be like one big thing. Like, if this one thing about me wasn't there, everything would be fine. If I just didn't get angry, or if I just didn't get pissed off, or if I just didn't get insecure, if I just didn't feel shyness, then my life would be fine. It's like, then it's like that in your face. And it seems counterintuitive to just recognize like the speck that it really is when you get perspective, which is why I think Sid spoke about raise your level of conscious state, raise your level of awareness, raise your level of understanding, a deeper understanding about what life is. And from that place, there's things that have happened in my life that at the time felt the biggest, most urgent, terrible thing, which now I can laugh about. And then there's moments in the middle of the night when I've woken up and it can come to mind, and I get flooded with that feeling of it being terrible again and awful. And it's 3D, completely experiencing it. And I think that's where I've grown in respect for the nature of what Sid saw in these principles. Is like, you can think that something is completely off your radar and you're never going to be bothered by it again, and then thought will humble you. It brings you down to your knees and shows you that, wow, this creates reality, all reality. And I've, like you were saying, started to see and respect and learn from those times. And I've got so much compassion for people who get lost in a story and don't know how to get out of it. I just don't want to feel like this. I just don't want to feel like this. I just don't want to feel like this. I get that. And I have so much compassion for it, because the nature of the mind will bring that to life and make it look real and like you're everything. And as we start to learn about the principles, it's almost like you're going to have to start playing with your mind. You're going to have to allow, you have to allow movement. You have to, and like when Paul said he'd listened and something Dave said had just did something for him, and then suddenly he was out on a walk. He wasn't listening to anything about the principles. Like all the coins just started dropping and all the connections were being made. Like, I think we said it once before, we heard it on a documentary we were watching. It doesn't take time for change, it takes alignment. When we align with what's true, and it doesn't then need us to know what isn't true or look at that. You're aligned with what's true, and then change is instant. It isn't a time-based thing. And I love that, you know, we can think we're aligned with what's true, and it's so simple and obvious, and it's like you're just laughing at the hilarity of life, and then you can get totally pissed off again within a space of seconds or minutes. That's how, like, momentary experiences. Mind blown, this is everything, I'm never going to feel like shit again. One thought later, oh my God, it's so hard. And like when we were hanging out with one of our friends who they'd been ill, they had kids, they're exhausted, they've got all this stuff going on in their lives, and they're like, they hated their life. And then I started asking them questions about something that I know they really enjoy, and they started showing me all around their house, and instantly, like all that I hate my life, everything shit disappeared. And they're like, oh, and I might use this color, and I'm going to do this, and I think it's going to look excellent. And I was like, where is all of that I hate my life gone? But we have been taught to give it so much attention. We've been taught to focus on it, study it, look at 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 it. It's really important. You've got to figure it out. And I remember that being the thing on that first course of like, I've actually got worse over the last 10 years through studying myself and my problems. It doesn't make sense. Like, how has it made sense to me to keep doing that and going back every single week? Well, like Paul said, I thought someone knew something more than me, because the experts were telling me that that's what you needed to do to get better. But it's like, it's the opposite to what we think. It's simpler than we think. Should we take questions? We haven't even had a break tonight. Sorry, everyone.
No, thanks, Paul. Honestly, that flew through.
I loved it.
Flown by.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks so much for sharing that, mate. It was really beautiful. Beautifully humble and really well, nicely put together. I loved it.
And thank you for being honest about the fact you were nervous beforehand, because we think we're different. We think we're the only ones. And it's like, it's a humbling thing. We're not. Except from you. You love to talk.
That's lovely sound of my own voice.
Yeah, true. Not always. Not when you're asked to dance.
No.
Doesn't have to be questions. It can be comments also. Or if anyone has questions for Paul.
Yeah. Trev.
I'd like to say thank you to Paul for that, for overcoming his ego and for speaking with such clarity and honesty of the feelings he's had and how he's coped with them and how they can snatch him back from one side to the other. I thought it was really touching, and really want to say thanks very much, Paul, for that, because that's helped me, and I'm sure it's helped everybody else when you can speak from your heart like that about your own experiences. Yeah, brilliant. Well done. Yeah.
Nice one, Trev.
Hi.
Heidi.
Hello. So can you hear me? Yeah. So, God, where do I start? So the last time I was on, I had lots of shame about that, because I just thought, like Paul was saying, I've let the cat out of the bag. Oh my God, you're going to think, you're going to say, I don't know, you're going to like block me or something, because I've just like shown this like revolting side. But then on the other hand, I was thinking, oh, don't be stupid. That's just you thinking stupid stuff that, anyway. So, and I kept looking on YouTube to see if it was on there, because I'm thinking, my God, what if anyone sees that, because it was recorded? And, I dread to think, how I looked. I don't know. But, that just showed, that is basically the epitome of my issue. And that is that I just feel so afraid to be myself. And, if I am myself, then it's like, oh God, that's not good enough. So everyone's going to judge me. And, but I really, I did something really crazy at the weekend, but nothing as crazy as I used to be. But I did something crazy, and it was after I watched. Have you seen the movie The Secret and the actual documentary The Secret? I read the book years ago, and when I read it, I thought, yeah, right. And my dad always used to say, if people are happy, it's a load of bullshit. And I really kind of took that on all my life, and I used to think, that's why maybe I really enjoyed taking ecstasy, because that really made me feel good. But I used to think after that if I wasn't taking ecstasy, I was never going to enjoy myself. But I haven't done ecstasy for ages now, and I have enjoyed myself. But anyway, that's by the by. So anyway, I watched The Secret, and I basically watched The Secret movie, then I watched the documentary, and I thought, right, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get what I really want. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to draw the house. I'm going to do it. And what it was, getting back with my ex, right? And it was Valentine's Day the next day. So I actually, this card that I got him like years ago, I got it out of the box, wrote something on it, nothing much. And I drove it round to his house and put it through the letterbox. And I thought, right, this is going to work. This is going to work. This is going to work. And I had so much thinking about it. One minute I was like, it's going to work. The next minute it was like I went down into this hell of, God, you're such a loser. Oh, he's going to think you're such a twat. All this stuff. And sorry for the swearing. I'm terrible. Really, really bad potty mouth me. Anyway, so that I managed to hold it together with my thinking and not go into hell. The whole weekend. And I had Jasper with me. Did I have Jasper with me? Yes, I did. And my son. And so I was really trying to hold it down and not lose it. But I had really good thoughts about it as well. And it was like, oh my God, it's gonna happen. It's gonna work. Because somewhere in this whole 3 principle thing, I've really believed that, I can control life with this 3 principles, and I'm really aware of that. But anyway, so what happened? Anyway, so I held it together, and then on Sunday night, I absolutely lost it, because I went down the rabbit hole, and it was like, I think what I ended up thinking was all the shit thinking about me and what he's thinking about me, and he's thrown the card in the bin. He didn't even open it. He knew it was from me, all this stuff, la, la, la. And, nothing is really about what he thinks. It's all about what I think. I realized that. And, this is what I've been doing all my life, projecting what I think onto other people. And when we were together, I used to shout at him and say, you think this about me, and I know you're thinking that. And he used to say, I'm not. And it was so crazy that, you know, that happened, but I really believed it. I really believed he was doing all of that. I really believed it. Anyway, so I lost it that night, and you know, I remember thinking, I'm going to phone my ex and say, because I couldn't get Jasper to bed. And I'm thinking, right, this is it. This is the night. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna end it. I'm gonna fucking end my life. And I remember thinking, you know, I'm gonna phone him and I say, right, I've done it. You better come and pick Jasper up. You know, like, and I imagine myself hanging myself, and you know, and then I just thought, you're completely nuts. You know, it's like I was all over the place with my thinking. You know, I didn't do anything. I did speak to Heartfelt. I went onto Heartfelt, you know, the 3P kind of Samaritans, and managed to get over it. But, you know, ever since then, I'm much more aware now. I mean, I certainly haven't got it, but I feel like I'm much more aware that, you know, that this is all my thinking, and I don't have to kind of get so involved in it and believe it anymore, which is, you know, it's just there. It's not going to go because I know about the 3 principles. And when I see you guys talk, and, you know, lots of people talk, I think you've all got it, and I'm never going to get it. There's something missing, you know, there's something fundamentally wrong with me, and I'm not going to ever get it. But, you know, because I've been thinking that it's like, you know, all of the stuff is, you know, all this negative shit just leaves you, but it doesn't. You know, it's just realizing that, you know, it's just there, and it's not actually you, it's the ego and all this stuff. I mean, like Paul was saying, you know, I so resonated with everything that you said, Paul. You know, oh my God, everything. And, you know, I really believed I was my ego. I really believed it, but it was like, and my ego was either really, really angry or like a real victim. And when I was being a victim, I really believed that was me protecting myself, but it wasn't. I just was like, became too afraid, or I became too angry. It was like one or the other, nothing ever in between. And yeah, so I don't know whether any of that makes sense. I don't even know. Anyway,
Cool,
I'll shut up now.
Right, thanks for sharing, look. First things first, you don't need to apologise or act like that for. It's cool.
Also, you're talking to the world's biggest potty mouth.
Yeah. Curb your fucking language.
I sometimes poor Mel sat there and I see Jess running around in the background. I'm like, don't.
Sorry, Bill. But yeah, a few things I've picked up on. One of the things that I feel like, what I really get a sense of, a thing that's blighted your life is, what will people think? What will people think?
I know what people think.
Yeah, it's like, what will people think? What are people thinking? Or, not even what are people thinking. I know what they're thinking. I had a friend once. She always, I love her to bits. Love her to bits. She'd always go, I know what you're thinking. Oh, I know what you're thinking. I'll go on then. She'd be like, you're thinking this. I mean, we did this for months. And I'd be like, no, I wasn't thinking anything like that. 1 second. Excuse us 1 sec. Jenny put Rusty in the car, and the car alarm's going off.
He's already weeding food in the house, and he's
He's
going
gonna
absolutely.
write
He
that
goes
shit.
on like a rampage of food. So he's already been fed. He's had his treats, and you'd think he'd then be satisfied, but he's not. He just wants more food, and he does it until about 9:30, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go chill out now."
Every night. Every single night, you get no rest.
And he was going mad, and he was in and out, and I could hear the doors closing and parents having to do stuff. So I was like, I'll just pop him in the car, wrapped him all up, took all the food out the car that I could find. But he's obviously just woken up because the car alarm. Sorry.
Right. But for months, we'd have this conversation, and she'd be going, I know what you're thinking. And she was absolutely convinced
she knew what I was thinking. And I'd listen to her. I'd listen to the way she spoke about people. Oh, they did that. Oh, why would you do that? Well, you do that because you like this. And I'd see her start creating stories about people. And I'd question her. Like, is that true? Or are you making it up? Is it true? Or are you making it up? Is it true? Or are you making it up? And one day, after she said to me, I know what you're thinking, for about the umpteenth, it used to drive me mad. Like, you don't know what I'm thinking. Do not know what I'm thinking. But because your reality looks so real to you, you assume that it's reality for everybody. This is
No,
the
I even said it to my 4-year-old son the other day. I even said to him, I know where you really want to be. You want to be with your daddy, don't you? I mean,
Right.
and he went, no, I don't.
Oh, bless him. Yeah, you know, it's like the reason why we do that is because we think that the way we see the world is everybody's reality. We think we are observing the real world. And so because it looks like that to us, without any awareness, we innocently assume that, well, everybody else must be seeing, it must be that. But because I think like this, it must be real, it must be true. So they must think like that. Which then, of course, when people show up in the world different, it creates that conversation. Why would you do that? Why? It creates gossip. Oh, do you know what they did? Oh, create all this gossip. I think it's one of the most humbling things when you realize that the reality that you encounter is the reality of your own consciousness. Nothing more, nothing less, nothing else. Your reality is the magical display of your consciousness, and nobody else can see it. Nobody else can think like you do. Nobody else can think like anybody else. Thank God. We get to be born into this world and we get to create reality. And without awareness, quite often we create hell because we assume that reality is outside of ourselves. As opposed to, we seem like we move through reality instead of reality moving through us. So it's a really beautiful thing when you start to see that, oh, I don't know what somebody is actually thinking. At that point, you can actually have a conversation with somebody. You can actually have an open, honest conversation. You can get shit cleared up in seconds.
But I think as well, like, I remember being in New Zealand and going for a jog, and I had my backpack with all my stuff in, and got down to the beach, took everything out, and my camera was missing. And no, I put my bag down, went for a run up and down the beach, got back, opened my bag up, my camera was gone. So then my mind starts looking for, where is it? Where is it? I saw those people, they look dodgy. Like, I'm looking for evidence. So I think it's been stolen. I start looking for evidence to support my story. And I spend about an hour and a half searching, like looking around at people, different people looking dodgy, thinking, oh, they were here yesterday. I think they saw me using it yesterday. And then eventually we packed up, started to walk back up the road, and then I started seeing other bits out of my backpack, like an apple and a pack of tissues. And my backpack had come undone and stuff had fallen out as I'd ran. And I didn't find my camera, but about a week later, someone had called the police and they'd handed it in and found a photo of my nephew on it and managed to find me anyway. And it really showed me that if we believe something, we create a story, we will start creating a reality that supports it. So I looked for evidence to support my story. Well, they looked at me that way. They said it in that tone. Well, if I acted like that, then it means, and you see how we just create these massive things. And it's like, I heard in what you were saying that you're starting to not believe it so much. And you've started to see that when you'd been listening to the principles, you thought maybe we had something you didn't. And then this week it's been like,
got it.
No, you've heard that we're exactly the same. That we get tripped up by the same stuff. Our reality looks totally real. And it amazes me sometimes when, especially if I work one-to-one with someone, and I feel like I've told a million stories about how lost in my head I can get. And then they still say next time, oh, I just wish I was as chilled out as you. I wish I saw these principles as deep as you. I'm like, what are you hearing? Because you're not hearing what I'm saying. I'm saying I'm as much of a lunatic as anyone else. But people don't want to hear that because suddenly they thought maybe I had something and they wanted that. And I heard in everything you said, it's like you're starting to have a bit of perspective. And even within the midst of dark thoughts, you're like aware that, my goodness, I'm taking this so seriously. And it's like, it's awareness is such an underrated thing.
Well, it's everything.
But it's underrated in most of life. But I think Sid saw that the awareness was key. See what's creating. See that it's an inside job.
Become aware of how it works.
And it's like you've got the perspective of, wow, I've done this a lot in my life. I've always thought I knew what people were thinking. And I've convinced myself it's true. Like, cool. What an amazing thing to have become aware of. What we then tend to do is want to work on it. But the awareness is enough. Because it's like in the midst of it, we catch ourselves and we get to wake up again. And then when someone else is in the midst of it, you get to know what's going on for them. Like I always used to think that when I had an argument with a partner, what they said in the midst of an argument was what they really meant. And I'd hold them to it.
Yeah, we have had conversations about that, haven't we?
Yeah, and it's like I've started to see how changeable my mind is. And when I'm really in a pissed off mood, I will say all kinds of things I don't even believe. It's just like anything will come out of my mouth. But other people in my life, I've held them to like the worst version of themselves.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's so much awareness in everything that you shared. And I think coming on the call last week, one of the things I was going to say to you is if you ever do want to share anyone and you thought, I don't want this to be recorded, you can just message us and we'll switch the recording off. Or if a group happens and you think, I really don't want that to go out, I normally takes me about a week or 2 weeks or a month or 3 months to get things up. So just tell us
Buffer.
and we either won't put it up or I'll edit it out. So just don't ever let that stop you from sharing because we're more than happy to do that.
Yeah, is it okay for you, Ed? I mean, I don't know, because...
No, this is going out.
Oh, it's gone out, has it?
It's already out.
No,
No, not this one, the one before.
I don't know if that one's out.
no,
yet.
it's not.
Yeah, we can probably leave that one.
Yeah, because I don't know. It's not right. I just think if anyone, well, I don't know. I don't really want to listen to it.
You really care what people think. Let me tell you something. You'll never know what people think.
No, I know.
You never know. You will never, ever, 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 ever know what somebody is thinking, even if they tell you. Because what we do then is we create a story about what they've said. It's still us thinking it.
Yeah.
You can't know what somebody's thinking. And I think that's one of the most relieving things. It's like, oh, I never know what somebody's thinking.
I know, but really it's always what I'm thinking, isn't it? And I know it's my judgment, and I'm very aware, and I have been aware for years, how judgmental I am. But the thing is, it's like, if I get to know someone, I'm much less judgmental, but it's really hard to explain, but it's like if they're not judgmental towards me and they're doing what I think is the right thing towards me, then I'll do the same. So it's conditional. And it's like, you know, so it's like I'll have these groups of people that it's like, oh, well, they haven't done anything bad to me, so I really like them and I'm going to continue to be nice to them. You know, and there's all this stuff going on about everyone all the time, and it's driving me nuts, to be honest. And I can see now that actually I don't have to have all of that with all these people. You know, I could just be there, be myself, and I don't have to have all this, you know, this messy story in my head, feeling like I've got to do this for that person and this for that person. It's like, Jesus, you know, this 3 principles is, I mean, it what's the word? Like when I first heard about it, it's like all this shit I have about myself and the things I've done and all my past, it's like, I don't have to hold on to that anymore. And that has been a right pain, you know, having to hold on to my past. I mean, it's been, I've had this like bloody mansion dragging it around behind me of shit, you know, and the other thing is fixed ideas and fixed opinions. You know, if I've ever done something wrong, I mean, I still see myself thinking, oh, well, I didn't say the right thing to that person yesterday. They're going to remember that and they're going to hate me today. And it's like, but I didn't really say anything that bad anyway. But it's like holding on to all this stuff. and thinking that everyone's remembering it, and you know, I'm remembering it from other people and thinking, oh, stay away from them. You know, it's like, Jesus, it's just so hectic.
We've got a friend who, they came up, when was it? Some point last year when we were allowed to move, came up to the Lake District to come and see us. And his missus got it into her head that we didn't like her. She won't speak to us now. And it turns out it's because she's really upset because of the way she was back then. This is like nigh on a year ago. And Jen just said, look, in all honesty, we don't remember shit like that. You know, it's so important in her world. It's so kind of vibrant in her reality. I've got the worst memory in the world. You know, I have practically got dementia. I forget everything. People say that, I just said to him, I said, look, I said, when I meet people, I meet an individual as they are now. I just meet them face to face, and however they're showing up, cool. You know, it's not a problem. But to this individual, to the other person, she's so convinced that we've got this story running about her, but it's really her running a story about herself. But because she's running the story about herself, it looks like it's coming from us.
Yeah.
And it's such a freeing thing when you realize this is so key. This is such a key thing to realize. Your reality is your everything. Whatever you are experiencing, you are creating it. You are the creator of your world. There is nothing outside of it. You've never known outside of your world. You cannot know outside of your world. It is totally, it doesn't exist. There is no outside of your world. Everything, we are creating everything in every single moment. If we don't like it, there's nobody else to blame. If we love it, there's nobody to get cocky about it with. It's just, we're doing it all. And until we see that, we will live as victims in certain respects of life. But to wake up and realize life is an experience. From birth till death, it is something we call an experience. What is experience? Where does experience take place? Well, it has to take place within our being. It has to be a state of awareness. Okay? If that's the case, then I am creating my life. Deeply humbling thing, and one of the most beautiful things. There's nobody else to blame for how we feel, as much as we want to. There isn't. Thanks, Hides, love. Should we take
Thank you.
one more? Anybody else? Michelle, do you want to say anything, love?
I wasn't going to really, Dave, but
All right.
I'd share a little bit of something I saw yesterday.
Yeah.
One of the first explanations I ever had of the three principles was from Aaron Turner's wife, who said about Leela, I think, isn't it, Leela?
Yeah.
Who said about naughty puppies, thoughts being like naughty puppies. And just a random thing yesterday that we met a naughty dog that's in the family. Sounds quite random, I know. But, you know, looking at this dog, and this dog, we've known it since it was a tiny puppy. I know it's about 18 months old. It's still a delinquent. Yeah, you know, it's going to become like a delinquent dog, really. And so just this thought passed through, like, well, whose responsibility is that the dog is like a delinquent now? And then, you know, in a split second, it occurred to me about the naughty puppies, and that the ego you could almost picture as some kind of delinquent, malfunctioning, mistrained dog, really. Was my own thought yesterday. I thought it was quite funny. But it's almost like, you know, when I looked at that, it's almost like the puppy when it arrives at your house and it's 8 weeks old has already been parented and socialized to an extent. which you had no influence over that at all. And it's like when we come to a place in life, probably through teenage years, where we start to manage our own thinking or not,
We wake up and realise we are doing so.
we've already inherited all that poor training, if you like, all that poor programming, you know, and not for a want to trying on parents' points of view and things like that. You know, I'm a parent myself, and your children experience different things in life than you would want them to experience in their own thinking. And, you know, it wasn't for a want of trying from a badly trained dog to teach another badly trained dog, you know, it's anyway, just a thought. That's all I saw yesterday. But what would we do, I guess, if you meet a badly trained dog, say it's like a rescue dog, you know, but we don't rescue ourselves, do we? We're not gentle with ourselves, and we're not compassionate to ourselves like perhaps we would be to a rescue dog. So you know, we're our own rescue dog, and we get a big stick to whack it with usually.
Oh, bless it.
So
We listened to a talk this morning by Bill Cummings, and he was saying he was in a maximum security prison, and they were quite like he was listening to the stories, and it was a lot of victims, but he said it was almost heartbreaking to hear what their lives have been like, how they've been brought up. But you see the innocence in like the poorly trained puppy trying to then bring up another life, but they don't even understand life themselves, and you see how it's innocent in that. And that's kind of his message is a beautiful one. You know, he's got some lovely stuff. I think Mel would have seen quite a lot of him through Paws Place, but he's got some incredible stories. And I think it is that starting to recognise if there was a puppy that had been abused, we'd want to show it love. And it's like, it's quite cool that you had the thought yesterday, oh wow, my ego is almost like a poorly trained puppy. It doesn't need more beating, it needs love. And I think in that way, ego doesn't become an enemy, it becomes something that you actually have compassion for. And it may just be that I have no idea, but if you leave that alone, who knows what that will do in your life. But it sounds like there's awareness and seeing, you're noticing, like it was a new thought. And I love that. I'm really glad you said, have you got anything to say?
Gosh, Michelle.
Okay, Dave, thank you. And
I
thanks
love
both
that.
for holding these sessions. They're much appreciated.
Oh no, you're welcome.
Thank
you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. If people didn't turn up, it wouldn't be worth doing. So thanks for joining us.
Well, we're all just in different faces, aren't we, really? Same thing.
Yeah, absolutely, love. That's it. That's it, love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's me wearing my mask and somebody else wearing theirs.
Totally. And every
And
single
yeah,
one
like
is
Heidi says, you know, frightened to
stunning.
death to take the veil off.
And everybody's stunningly beautiful. Absolutely stunningly beautiful. That's what life is. It's stunningly beautiful. It's only us that cover up that beauty. Does anybody else want to say anything before we finish? We'll take a question or anything, whatever. Mark, got our copy to say? Oh.
You was going to say that.
Good lad.
Did Mark tell you, Colette, I loved, my favourite part of Elsie's talk was when you said, Elsie, I love you.
I got so excited.
It's so cool.
I can't believe it.
Loves you two too. Loves you two more than she loves me.
Better add. Thank you. All right, everyone. Paul, thank you so much, sir. Beautiful. Paul's
Thank you.
work is something I'm getting involved in. It's called Menkind. It's on Facebook. If
What's it
know
called
any
again?
fellas-
Men what?
Menkind.
Right.
Menkind. It's on Facebook, isn't it, Paul?
Yeah, it's on Facebook, and I'll hopefully be starting putting things on blogs, hopefully information, links to Jen and Dave in the next
Is it just
few
for
days.
men? Is it just for men? Yeah.
We need more help.
Yeah, so if anybody knows of any fellas who, well, you know what they're like, might need a little bit of help. We're starting to, I'm helping Paul. Paul's already started it, Menkind, and we're going to get something up and running. Try and get fellas just to move forward.
Even if it's people, if you want to put any comments on, if it's people who don't suffer with any kind of issues or people who are struggling, just to, I set it up to normalise the conversation around mental health or talking about feelings, emotions, struggles. So whether you have or you haven't, yeah, try and show some kind of support on it, or any advice or links. That would be great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for tonight, everyone.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us. It's lovely to see your faces. Mwah. Love to everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
See you next Thursday. Bye.